Hello and welcome to this very special episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy.
Thank you for joining us today. We will be discussing Malcolm and Marie, which is about a couple who has the fight of the century. I don't know. I feel like I should describe this as a classic Ali versus Sphinx fight, or Ali versus, I don't know.
It's just a very, very intense fight on the best night and worst night of their lives. If that makes any sense, you know?
That does, but I still feel like it deserves a Ali Foreman moment, Ali Sphinx, Ali. Like, this was an Ali fight. So, and that's the best way I could describe it. I couldn't come up with any flowery words for a great introduction because it just left me there. It was a fight. So what did you think of Malcolm and Marie? I know you said you thought we would disagree, but I'm really interested to see what you had to say.
It was very authentic. Just say, it was okay. So I'm going to be honest and say that I enjoyed it, but at the same time, about halfway through, it was hit or miss for me on a lot of points. I understood the whole concept and I loved the whole concept of the movie. Seeing like them going from loving to hating to yelling at each other, cursing each other out, to going back to laughing and joking around. I thought it was really good on seeing how many emotions they went through in just that one argument that they had over, what was it, like an hour and a half. So it was good. It was good. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into the discussion of like the different emotions that went on throughout the night. But yeah, it was hit or miss for me. So we'll get more in detail. What about you, Eddie?
I'm gonna start with the technical. You tell me I'm technical, so
the technical. Okay, go ahead, Eddie.
I'm gonna go with the technical. The film was beautifully shot, and I love that it was in black and white. It was the first film that was shot during quarantine. They shot it really early in the quarantine, so it had a skeleton crew. I love the choices that they made. The casting was phenomenal. The acting was phenomenal. And it was authentic. And someone said it best. I read on Twitter where they were like, at one point I was agreeing with Marie, then at another point I was agreeing with Malcolm, and by the end I was exhausted. Like, you really felt like you were in that fight. And it's like, at one point it went from them just fighting each other to it seemed like they were fighting for their relationship, if that makes sense. And it was one of those fights where it's a make or break for your relationship. Like, it's a callus. It's like one of those, your relationship either ends after this fight or you have to start over after this fight, but there's no going back to what it was. Does that make sense? Like, it was one of those, it was a really intense fight. Like,
but I feel like based on like some of the statements that was made is that all of their fights were intense fights that they had. Like, I didn't kind of see this fight as a make or break. I do think that it went deeper, and it went deeper just because of the subject of the fight, which ultimately was the movie and the fact, the speech that he gave, the fact that he didn't thank her, but also that the movie was so similar to her life and he didn't cast her as the lead in the movie. And I think the subject is where they went and hit even more below the belt. Very spiteful in their statements to each other as they're trying to win this argument that they're having. They got very, very spiteful and very, very hurtful. But based on like what Marie was saying, is that all their fights are just as intense. Like, because he doesn't know how to stop. And so he pushes and pushes and pushes. And you see that throughout the whole movie. It's like he pushes. And the more that he pushed, the more hurtful and mean and assholery he gets as the fight gets more intense. you know?
Yeah, and I get that. Like I did sense that when they fought, it was quite an event. I got the sense that all their fights were really dramatic, and but this one seemed to take a different turn. And and once you got into it, like I said, there were points where you agree with her, there were points where you agree with him, and then by the end you were just tired. But by the end, especially when she broke it down, I truly understood where she was coming from. Like, it wasn't just that he didn't thank her. It wasn't like, oh, I forgot to thank her. But it's at this point, it's like, you didn't thank me, but your main character in your film is based off of me. And then not only that, you made a movie about my life, but you didn't even think to try to cast me in the movie about my life. You didn't seem interested in trying to cast me. And that was one of my favorite parts, is where she went all dramatic on him, and she came out with the knife, and he didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
If she was serious.
What she was doing.
Yeah, and then she's like, and then when she finished, because at one point I said, nah, she's just reacting to the scene from the movie. But then at one point I was like, isn't she? And then when she goes, and that is what authenticity buys you, Malcolm. And then he was like, and John David Washington, he kind of channeled his dad for me when he said, and that's how you should have done it.
That was very Denzel Washington of him.
That was very Denzel. And normally I try to separate the two. Like, I try not to go for the Denzel comparisons, but I'm like, that's when I said, you your daddy's son, boy.
Okay, so I did get that thought process as well, because this is only the second movie that I've ever watched him in, because I still have not seen Inception. So this is the second movie that
He's not in Inception. I'm sorry, excuse me.
He what?
He's in Tenet. Inception
Tenet,
is Leonardo DiCaprio.
Sorry.
Recognize.
I haven't watched Tenet. So this is only the second movie that I've watched besides Black Klansman. So this is the first intense role that I've seen him in. And I was just like, he got the acting chops, runs in the family. Like, that's what I was thinking at a certain point. Especially the scene where he goes into the backyard and he's hitting the air and he's like punching it and slashing it with with an imaginary sword and everything. And I was just like, for some reason, I saw Denzel in that moment.
Yes, and when he was arguing with himself or the critic from the LA Times, and that was another thing that I loved. I loved that scene too. It was funny, and I'm gonna do more on that in just a moment. But going back to the technical parts of the movie, I loved how it was just two people in this movie, but you really felt the other characters, like the supporting characters, just based on how they talked about them and how well they were written. You felt like that you had seen or met the woman from the New York Times. You felt like she was a real character. And then Taylor, the actress who played Marie's role in the movie, you felt like that they were real characters that you had met earlier in the evening. So at least I felt that way. So I really applaud that, how we were introduced to these other characters and we felt like we got to know them just through this conversation. So yeah. But I loved how Marie, she just sat there like they knew each other so well. She just sat there and let him argue with himself. It was just like, okay.
Yeah, it just every once in a while she'd make a sound, but he really just was going off with his own self.
Yeah, and she was like, and you do realize you just argued with yourself, right? So, but I mean, and I guess that goes back to what you say about how he can't let anything go. Because for the most part, it was a great critique of his film. And he found the things to nitpick, and you saw that literally he probably had what in real life would have been a 20-minute argument with himself, or an argument with the imaginary New York Times writer who was right there. So you do get the sense that he can't let things go, and I got that. And I got that most of their arguments were brutal, but this one seemed like, just from what she was saying, that it hit so different. And what gave me that sense is at the end, when she was saying how she would not let them have sex that night, how it used to be one of her biggest vices, but she refused to go there because it's like, it seems like that's what they would do. They would fight, fuck, make up. And she didn't want to repeat that cycle, not with this argument. So that.
But every time she smoked a cigarette, I felt like she was plotting murder.
Oh, yeah.
Like, every single time that she got so pissed and she didn't want to, like, you know, okay, so you know, like, when you get angry and you start to cry and people think, like, you really crying, but you just trying to hold yourself back from murdering somebody. Like, I feel like that was what cigarettes were to her. So every single time she got to the point where she literally just wanted to, like, go up to him and just start killing him, like stabbing him with a knife or something, she would go and get a cigarette and just start smoking a cigarette, like, to calm herself down. And that's what I got every single time she went to go get that cigarette. I was just like, girl, you at the point where you about to kill him, huh? You gotta stop yourself a murder.
Like, you knew it was different because he was about to go to town on that kitty. He wanted that instead of that macaroni and cheese, and she stopped him. She's like, no. Like, she let out a sigh like, nah, bruh, you're not getting away with it this time. So that was something that was the first signal that she was truly, truly mad. And then I think the more she thought about it, she just became more upset. As she went on, as she sat and thought about all the ways, and you could see the ways that he took her for granted, you know, but you also got the sense that she was no angel either. But when she told him that you took the worst parts of my life and you threw them back in my face just to hurt me, I was like, damn.
Well, yeah, because he got the more intense the argument got, the more spiteful he got. When she was in the bathtub and he went to her, I felt like that was the worst thing that he could possibly do to her, is when he told her none of this was about you. Like, this was about so-and-so, it was about this person, it was about that person. None of this was about you. And the only part of the movie, when he said the only part of the movie that was about you was the part that showed that you can never accept love and you will never love yourself. And I was just like, damn. Like, really? Like, was that necessary to hit her like that? Whew. I was like, that was intense for me.
Yeah, and then, but she cracked me up when she was like, dude, I used to have respect for you, but something like, she used to have respect for him, but don't ever tell anybody that you fucked someone in a heart-shaped bed in the Marriott. Was it the bathtub or the bed? It was
a heart-shaped bathtub.
Bathtub. And I'm like, dude, really? That is fucking cheesy. Like, you're a grown man, and that's what you like. That's just one of those things you don't tell anybody. Like, that's so Vegas Strip. But that's like the bad part of the Vegas Strip. That's like the cheap hotel, the hotel that's like back off of the Vegas Strip. The one that you stayed at just so you could say you were in Vegas.
Oh, Lord.
Like, you know, that's you getting married at 3:00 in the morning because you're drunk off your ass by an Elvis impersonator. It's just like, nah, dude, we eloped in Vegas and leave it at that, you know? But, but what did you think about the argument? Do you think there was any going back from that?
Yes, because they've been there already. Like, I don't think that she said it best when she said the reason why he said all the stuff that he did and he hit her below the belt and he was very spiteful in his arguments against her was because he never ever doubted that at the end of the day she would be there. Like, there was never a doubt in his mind that she would just one day, like, wake up and be like, I'm out, I'm done, I'm gone, and leave. And you got the sense of that. That was her saying that at the end of the day, she was still going to be there. After this argument was over, she was still going to be there at the end of the day. And he knew that. But with her, it was kind of like, but I can't say the same. Because you're so egotistical and you only think of yourself that, you know, you don't doubt my feelings for you. But at the same time, like, you're not 100% there. You just think too much of yourself that, you know, I'm not going to leave, so then you're just going to stay. I was like, dang, okay. It was some deep moments.
Well, see,
there were very, very deep readings of each other, and I love that. Like when he said that I can read you, and when she says I know you, and I'm the only one that will also call you an asshole when you're being an asshole, it was very, very true. Like they had a very, very honest conversation, which is something that is missing from a lot of relationships. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it probably broke something in them. But at the end of the day, they had a very, very honest conversation. And then they could laugh about, like, I love the fact that they were intense and then go to laughing, go to kissing, and then go back to intense. Like, it was so many emotions. And I feel like that was even more of an authentic, honest conversation that they were having on how many emotions they were going through compared to regular adults. Because we would just walk away and be like, fuck you, and we gone. Like, we done. Like, ain't nobody stay for all that shit. But it does show a lot of conversations that should be had between couples.
Yeah, and I mean, like on one hand, but I think you hit the nail on the head, and you kind of made my point when you said it broke something in them, and that's what I mean. Like it was one of those. It wasn't one of their regular arguments. It was it may have started off that way, but it did not end that way, because you could see when he woke up the next morning and he couldn't find her, he was really scared that she was gone. And I think that it had crossed her mind. Like I was surprised. Like it wouldn't have surprised me either way. Like her being there, I was like, okay. Part of me was a little disappointed. I guess that's that G in me that was like, nah, you took it way too far, player. Like, you know, like, because like you said, it broke something. And that's one of those arguments where I say, okay, because she stayed at this point, there's no going back to what we were before.
But I feel like it broke something, but can I say that last scene, the thank you speech that she gave
was hella deep.
It was really, really deep. And I think that what was broken in their relationship that they never dealt with, because I felt that with this whole argument and the arguments that they probably had before, it was slowly breaking down their relationship, especially inside of her. The relationship was slowly being broken down. I got that more from how she viewed the argument compared to how he viewed the argument. But I think that thank you speech, when she finally told him like what she needed and what she wanted, and he stood there and he listened to the whole thing, did not interrupt. He stood there and he listened. And at the end when he said, you know, I love you, I'm sorry, thank you. And she said, you're welcome. And I was just like, I feel like even though something had broken throughout the whole night, I also feel like it was on the mend, on the fact that they were finally able to get to the root of why she was angry in the first place. Because that thank you said exactly why she was angry. She didn't feel appreciated, and he didn't understand that she didn't feel appreciated. You know? And I get that, and that's what I'm saying. But because she decided to stay, whatever was broken at this point, there was no going back to what they were before. No. It was one of those points where, okay, because she stayed, we've got to start over and build this up again. We have to see who the new Malcolm and Marie are, because the old Malcolm and Marie, that shit's been played out. And you got how serious she was. At least I did when she said, because a lot of people, they fuck and they fight, and that's it, and it never solves anything. Mm-hmm. And that was the point that she made. Like she said, besides cigarettes, having sex with you was my vice. And you got the sense that, you know, just because of the first scene when they came home and he tried to go down on her, he knew she was upset, and he was like, not this again, but he tried to ease it with sex. And it seemed like at moments that they were going to go there, but she was determined not to allow them to fall back into the habit. So you could tell, and I guess you're right, that was an argument that she wanted to have, that she knew they needed to have, that, okay, if he's on the cusp of this stardom, if this is his big night and this is his big movie, then we definitely can't go on like this. It's kind of like, you're right. We have to have this out. We have to have this discussion because everything is about to change. Yep. But can we talk about how also I enjoyed the intensity of the movie, I did enjoy the intensity of the movie, but I also felt that it was too above my head. I'm a regular moviegoer. You know, I don't follow a dictionary on Twitter, so
Pot shots. Why are you trying
does.
to? Why are you trying to wick me, man? I take that headshot. I'll take those 2 to the dome.
Because I bet you all those big words that they were throwing out, you could figure out exactly, if you didn't know what they meant, you could figure out what they meant, or you would look them up to find out exactly what the meaning of those words are. And I was just like, he was throwing out some words, and I was just like, oh Lord Jesus, like am I in a film history course? Like, he was naming all of these movies, he was naming all of these directors, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know none of this. Like, I recognize Spike Lee. If that means anything. But I did feel like at the same time, the movie can go over the heads of regular, and not to say that we're dumb or anything like that, but sometimes I think that, I go to the movies to really shut my brain off. And I felt like in this movie, at points, I felt like my brain had to be working in order to fully follow exactly what they were trying to say, especially him. What he was trying to, because he was an elitist. He didn't want to acknowledge the fact that he was an elitist, but he was.
And she called him out on that.
She did. Two-parent home. He's never had to scrap for anything. She was like, you grew up in a 2-parent home. Like, you have a college education. Like, you've never had to scrap for anything. You don't understand what it means to scrap for anything. And I definitely got that part of it. And I guess that shows another difference in between Marie and Malcolm. I could relate more to Marie than I could to Malcolm, because you saw his more, I want to say you could see the fact that he is what people would call like an elitist, or he had a certain privilege that he didn't want to acknowledge, a certain privilege that he had, or he didn't want it to be a part of who he was as a director. And I'm just like, yeah, dude, like, I think Angela Davis would think differently. I was with her when she said that. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
I agree. Like, I love all sorts of movies, so and to me that is relaxing still. But I agreed with her too, in the sense that he was an elitist. You could tell he was a snob. He just wasn't my cup of tea. Like, the character was beautifully played by John David Washington.
It was.
So let's give him all the props in the world, because he acted his ass off and he was great.
Which throws me off that he wasn't nominated.
Yes. But as far as Malcolm, the character, he was an asshole.
Yeah.
Call it artistic license, call it this, call it that. He was an asshole. It was like he was one of those kids who probably went to USC Film School, or NYU Film School, or Columbia Film School, hung out with his art house film friends and talked about all this shit. Like, the stuff that he was dogging the critic for is the same stuff that he did, just on a different level. Yeah. And I think she even made that point at one time about how, okay, she's an elitist, but so are you. It just may be elitist about different things, you know. She may be elitist about the Black experience, but you're just an elitist, period. You know, like, you feel like, because is that making any sense?
No, I get what you're trying to say. Like, there are different levels to being an elitist, and your knowledge, or how you respond to certain things in your life, especially when you have a specialty. And I think that his specialty in film history and in filmmaking is where his elitism came from. Is that he had that mindset when it came to like film and everything. Like, he was throwing out, when he threw out the filmmaker William Wyler, and he was like, I bet you she don't even know. He was like, and she was like, I don't even know who that is. And he was like, oh. And it was just like, dude, of course you know. Like, that's your, she nobody knows who that is. So so definitely came out in certain parts when he was talking about her going to college, and she was like, you went to college. Like, what are you talking about?
So he would have been an ass. But you could also tell that at one point in time, I'm not saying he didn't care for her, but that he really did, because it seems like he's the one. And the other thing, I'm mixing up all my thoughts, but first, he really cared for her because he helped her get clean. They've been together for 5 years, and they addressed the other thing so subtly that everyone had a problem with, including yourself, and that is the age difference between
I didn't see it
the
once
actors.
I saw the movie.
Yeah, and once you saw the movie, you didn't see it, but it was addressed so subtly about how they've been together for like 5 years, and that he was a little bit older than her. Like, they didn't address the exact, but you got the feeling, you knew that he was a little bit older than her.
Yeah, it worked. And it worked based on her background, and I was just like, oh, okay, like I can see that now. Yeah.
Yeah, and and you also got the feeling that maybe after she cheated on him, he kind of checked out a little bit. He did that man thing, like, I forgive you, I'm going to stay with you, but he didn't truly forgive her. And it seemed like that part of the reason why he was such an asshole, or why he took her for granted in some ways, was because he was trying to punish her for that.
Punish her for everything. I think that he was punishing her for her weakness in ways. Because he also, when he was going real intense on her and he was using all her secrets that she told him against her, and he said, like, I was with you for, those 6 months when she couldn't even have sex because she was so, like, high out of her mind.
And of course a man would say that.
That she couldn't even have sex, and I stayed with you through that, and then just literally naming every single thing. So yeah, it was really, really intense, but I think they both had their vices. We really only hear about hers, but I think they both had their vices. They both had reasons why they knew each other's secrets enough that they knew how to hit under the belt. But I will say, throughout the movie, I never thought at one point that they did not love each other. And I guess maybe that would be an unpopular opinion, but I got the sense that the people, it's sad to say, but the people that love you the most are the ones that can hurt you the most. And when you feel hurt, you want to hurt that person just as much, especially when they know your secrets, because you trust them above all. But I never got the sense that they didn't love each other throughout the whole entire night. Like, I just got the sense that their feelings were hurt. They went through some intensity, but I never denied. Like, it was never a denial of their feelings, and you can tell that by how many emotions they went throughout the whole entire argument.
Yeah, I agree with you. I never got the feeling that they hated each other. It wasn't like, and I know you've probably never seen this movie, The War of the Roses.
Oh gosh, no.
Okay,
I've heard of it. I just haven't seen it.
Yeah, it wasn't a War of the Roses. Like, I never got the feeling that they hated each other. It didn't. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes the people you love the most are the ones that you hurt the most, whether it was intentional or not. And hurt people. So when he fought to win. He wasn't, and it's like he didn't want to be run up. And and you're right. The only time that you really got the sense that he was truly listening to her, to hear what she was saying, and not to weaponize it, not to respond, was at the end when she gave him the thank you speech.
Yeah, definitely.
Other than that, and there's a saying that, are we listening only so that we can respond, or are we listening so that we can hear and understand?
That's a human thing. And, a lot of times we're just listening so we can respond rather than really listening to what the person is trying to tell us.
Yeah, and at the end, you got the feeling that, okay, that was the time where he was one of the few times where he was actually listening to understand. And you can tell that it affected him and that it hit him. And, I agree. I think that they loved each other. And like I said, for me, that was a fight. That was a night that could have gone both ways. If she would have stayed, if that night would have been the end of their relationship, I fully get it. And if their relationship continues on after that, I understand. But it was one of those turning points for me. I don't think that they could go back to what they were before that fight, either way. So, what all did you think? I know there can't be a sequel, but I do want.
I don't want to know what happens. Like, if that I'm good on how it ended.
Yeah, I told my friend, someone I was talking about, I said it was one of those where you wanted to know, I don't want a sequel. I can't live through another sequel, okay? I can't live through the aftermath. But it was like I wanted to know, like, scrolling up in the, like, have credits telling you what happened, like, oh, okay, they lived happily ever after. Malcolm's movie was a success, or something like that. Marie got back into acting or something. I don't know, but do I actually want another sequel? No, I don't. But I would love to see them in another film together. They had great chemistry, excellent chemistry.
They did. And I will say that I have seen how much Zendaya has grown as an actress. I don't watch is it Euphoria?
Oh my God.
I don't watch Euphoria. It bores the heck out of me. We've had this discussion. I'm not going to be watching it because I could not get into it. I was bored out of my mind for the 2.5 episodes that I watched. I could not. And I tried it 3 times and still it could never pull me in. But I definitely see how she has improved on her act. Not saying that she was a bad actress before, but I definitely have seen the improvement on her acting, especially with this movie, on that she's grown.
Yeah,
now she's now. I can see her as a 20-something-year-old woman that she is now than as a teenage girl. Like, I definitely see her in her early 20s. Like, she's an adult woman now, and I love that because it's only gonna get better from here. Like, she did a fantastic job in this movie.
Because we really don't get to see. Euphoria is great. She's excellent in Euphoria, and but also in Spider-Man, which I think most people would probably know her from, and her Disney. Like, I didn't follow her Disney career. I knew who she was. I was a fan because gotta support my peoples in this business. But so it was really just with Spider-Man and Euphoria that her breakout role in Euphoria, I guess, that started to pay attention. And Spider-Man, it just doesn't show her acting chops. Nothing against the Spider-Man franchise or MCU, but it's not about Mary Jane, it's about Spider-Man.
Even then, I think that she I kind of disagree a little bit on that, not to get into it, but she shows the awkwardness of the MJ character that she plays. I will say that she does a good job of showing that awkward teenage girl thing that she has going on, because then she fits better with this Spider-Man played by Tom Holland than the previous Mary Janes that have been or even Gwen Stacy that have been in the previous Spider-Man movies. Like, I think that she plays that awkward teenage girl way better, and it could be because they're actually both closer to the age of Spider-Man and MJ than the previous actor and actresses that have played those roles. But
yeah, I'm not saying she's bad at the role. She's good at the role. But it doesn't really show her full range.
Yeah, she's an adult now. She's an adult, and I can't wait to see what else she has. But I say at the end, even with the intensity, because at some points they really did lose me, and I started to look at my phone or started to get distracted. They didn't hold my interest throughout the whole movie. I will say that. So my rating for Malcolm and Marie, I am going to rate it at about a 3.25 popcorns. Just because it could not keep me interested in the intensity of the movie. There were boring parts where I was just like, oh Lord, like how much longer is this argument gonna be? Because, whoo, goodness. And I was like, whoo, 45 more minutes to go? Dang. Yeah. So 3.25 is what I'm going to rate Malcolm and Marie. Not to say that it's not something you should watch. You definitely should. But it couldn't keep me fully interested throughout the whole entire movie.
See, I was the opposite. I was fully invested throughout the whole film. I watched from beginning to end. At one point I was like, they are going to argue for the whole film. But so I guess going in, I knew that it was going to be the argument for the whole film. But I love the way that they did it. Like, they took you through like you said, the human emotions of you kind of went through. If it was an argument that lasted for days, we got it all in one night, like the various emotions that you would feel, the happy, the sad, the laughter, the okay, I think we're cool. Are we cool? She's about to, fuck, we're not cool, you know. So I'm going to give it a 3. I was teetering on this. I couldn't decide, and I think I finally decided. I'm going to give it a 3.5 stars.
Okay. That's close to me.
I was 3.5, 3.75 is really good, but it is a lot. It is a lot to take in. It's really intense. So, and just a few nitpicky things, but yeah, I do recommend it. I recommend that you don't watch it if you're already pissed off. But yeah, so that does it for this episode on Malcolm and Marie. As always, I want to thank you for joining us. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy. Bye.